Hey folks, Nathan here from the Star Wars Timeline Gold, Star Wars Reports, Rebels Roundtable, and Star Wars Beyond the Films, bringing you a look at another Fantasy Flight Game Star Wars product. This is Star Wars Imperial Assault Twin Shadows, the Twin Shadows expansion. This is kicking off Wave 2. And you might recall we had a box set before that was much larger, that was the core set. And inside that core set we had a whole bunch of characters that had miniatures, but then we had a handful like Han and Chewie and so forth that instead had a card for them and a little token you could use to play them in the game. Then if you wanted to, when Wave 1 expansions came out, you could actually buy those characters as little expansion packs, and inside you would find a duplicate of the card, plus a miniature to replace the token and some other gaming materials to expand into new missions and whatnot. Oddly, they've kind of done the same thing here with Wave 2, because this box is going to have some characters that only have tokens, which are the characters you can buy as Wave 2 miniatures. It's definitely an odd approach they're taking, but I guess you could call it a consumer-friendly approach because it is keeping us from having to necessarily buy all the little expansions if we get the big ones, as long as we don't particularly care about the issue of miniature versus token to represent them. So this is our box set here. Reverse side lays it all out for us, of course. Also in the box, we have one of those little booklets telling us, hey, what are the new products there are. We then have our Imperial Assault rulebook. We'll get into this in detail. And with that, we have the skirmish map sheet for drinks and dealings and battlefield engineering. You flip this over, it's just an advertisement for these most recent Wave 2 expansions for Imperial Assault. Now this does make for kind of an interesting pack. What you've got here is a new, what they call a mini campaign. You can work the campaign pieces here, the missions, into a regular campaign, or play them as a separate, smaller one meant to take only about 6 to 8 hours total compared to the other campaign, because all the missions in this are considered story missions. There aren't any side missions worked in if you're playing it as a mini campaign. There's a new icon here, right, to denote this as the Twin Suns expansion. It gives you rules, new additions to the rules reference. We get our story set up, of course. The Galactic Civil War continues to rage through the galaxy. The Empire's reach grows longer and its grasp becomes tighter. Even those on the Outer Rim cannot escape. In response to this growing threat, Han Solo has gone to the desert planet Tatooine with 2 droids, R2-D2 and C-3PO. Bet he's having a fun time given his attitude toward the droids, hoping to investigate the local Imperial presence. Now, communication with Solo is lost, and a team of elite rebel operatives speeds toward the planet, hoping to find answers. And that sets up our missions, including Hunted Down, Past Life Enemies, Shady Dealings, Canyon Run, the Imperial missions that can come out through their agenda cards here, Fire in the Sky, and Infiltrated. Then you have special epilogues to different missions based on the outcome that include the winning conditions and whatnot, because some of these are ones that end with, you know, the heroes win the campaign, or the Imperial player wins the campaign. Personally, I think it's pretty cool, another thing to track it here, of course, pretty cool that what we've got here is the ability to play something a lot like the core game, but faster, right? And with different characters this time around. So new story missions, it's going to include some new skirmish missions, albeit only 2, for $40. So for $40, aside from that, what do you get in the box? What are the cards? What are the tokens? What are the miniatures that make this a $40 product? Let's start with the miniatures here. We have 2 new heroes here. We have this guy, Bib Bodrick, and then we have this woman here, Saska Teft. Okay, so 2 new heroes. With them, of course, that means we get a hero sheet for each, right? And then we get our regular deployment cards for each. Then we have some new Imperial models here. Now, this thing does contain 10 miniatures, but there's only 4 variants of the miniatures, right? There's the 2 heroes, and there are 2 sets of 4 each of the 2 other types of miniature. You've got the Heavy Stormtrooper here, and then you've got a Tusken Raider with constantly bent ends to their gaffy sticks is what I'm finding. But 4 of each of those 2. To go with them, of course, we have our deployment cards. elite versions of both, and our regular versions of both. I should probably note here too, before I move on, that the Tusken Raiders are considered mercenary, whereas the heavy stormtroopers, of course, are considered Imperial. So with your two heroes, we basically have some Rebel, some Imperial, and some mercenary in this package. Now, there are also characters you can use that have deployment cards that, again, do not have miniatures. They got tokens, like what we saw back with the core game. Those are R2-D2, who in this case gets 2 cards because there are story mission, or campaign mission, and skirmish mission variants of R2-D2, and you can only use the one that is appropriate for your type of play, which I found interesting. Alongside him, C-3PO, and then for the Imperials, Boba Fett, and Kane Somos, a trooper commander. Again, with them, each of them has a token rather than a miniature at this point. Speaking of tokens, we have ID tokens, a set for 9 and a set for 8, along with the stickers to go with that. We have 8 so-called device tokens that play a role within the campaign here. We have a total of 10 damage tokens, 4 for 5 damage and 6 for 1 damage. We have 6 strain tokens. We have a proof of purchase. We have a condition here known as weakened, which has 4 cards here to denote it. That's a little symbol on it. And 5 tokens to denote it. And of course we have new map tiles. We have a set of 12 of those. One enormous one here. And then 12 again of all varying sizes to get us the landscapes we need for the various missions included in this box. Speaking of missions, that brings us into our side mission cards. Bear in mind, when you're playing this as a mini campaign, these are actually treated like regular story missions, not side missions, but they are here as side missions if you're going to play in the broader game. You can have Hunted Down, that can get you the Han Solo Scoundrel ally. Past Life Enemies for the Hunt Them Down reward card. Shady Dealings for the Tech Goggles reward card. And Canyon Run up here for the Counterparts reward card. We then also have our 2 skirmish mission cards for Drinks and Dealings and for Battlefield Engineering. You heard about those momentarily when I showed you the map page. We then have 6 agenda cards, 2 sets of 3 of course. Fire in the Sky, Death Mark, and Strike and Subdue make up the Pursuit of the Enemy set. And then for a set called the Empire's Reach, we have Infiltrated, Advanced Prototypes, and Data Security. Then we have our Hero Class decks. The one for Biv is this one here on the bottom. Repeating Blaster, Advance, Shake It Off, Crushing Blow, Into the Fray, Vibro Bayonet, Trophy Armor, Stay Down, and Final Stand. And then for Saska, we have another class deck here with Modified Blaster, Unstable Device, Toolkit, Structural Weakness, Energy Shield, Gadgeteer, Power Converter, Remote Distribution, and Adrenaline Injector. We also have a new class deck for the Empire called Inspiring Leadership. It's got that symbol there on the back. Of course, these class decks, if you flip them, it's just the characters again, as you would expect. But for the Empire, for Inspiring Leadership, we have Field Officer, Supervisory Agent, Press On, Strategic Planning, Noble Sacrifice, Imperial Dedication, Field General, Optimal Tactics, and Lead by Example. And yes, that's Field General and Field Officer. There are 2 different cards here. We then have 5 reward cards here. We have Surveillance Operatives, Bounty, Counterparts, Hunt Them Down, and Tech Goggles. We have 3 command cards, Cruel Strike, Stay Down, and Hidden Trap. We have 2 supply cards, Chance Cubes, and Macro Binoculars. Then we have 6 item cards, right, for the different tiers here. So Gaffy Stick and Tatooine Hunting Rifle, those are Tier 1. Plasma Cell and EE3 Carbine are Tier 2. And of course for Tier 3, DLT-19 and Hidden Blade. So again, it is a ton of new materials here. Cool new mini-campaign, introduction of a couple new heroes finally, which is a welcome addition to go beyond just a handful of heroes we got in the core set. Would have possibly been nice to have more than just the 2 different miniatures here, to have 4 of each, maybe to make some more opportunities to switch things out and whatnot, but we do at least have those characters there with the tokens that introduce R2, 3PO, Boba Fett, and Kane Somos, though as we're going to see, this is another one of those ways of saying, hey, you can play with them if you want with the tokens, but if you want some extra cards and stuff, and you want miniatures to represent them, you're going to have to buy the expansions, which we'll talk about in our next 3 shorter videos here. Lots and lots of good stuff. Again, this is a $40 set. Miniature Market, where I got mine, has it for about $30. I think it is definitely a welcome addition to those who have picked up Imperial Assault. Even if all you've got is the core game, and you haven't got any of the Wave 1 expansions to replace tokens with figures, pick this one up. I think you'll find that it's very worthwhile. As for the ones that just replace miniatures or tokens with miniatures for this wave, yep, gonna have probably the same advice as I had for you last time, but that's the subject of our next video. For now, this is Twin Shadows. I think it's worth the purchase.